Hi everybody, welcome back to IndyCar. This is the second time I've broadcast this show today. I don't normally have to broadcast the same programme twice, but this morning the sound quality on my programme was interfered with by some outside transmitter. So I don't know who was doing it or what they were doing it for, but they knew where I was, and they were definitely scrambling the sound signal. So I'm going to give you the same show again. Basically it's the same two topics. The two topics are the alleged, and I say alleged, spaceport that's supposed to be getting built in the Highlands, and the proposed development by Flamigo land at the south shore of Loch Lomond. Now let's take, first of all, the spaceport, just for talking sake, let's take that first. Okay, so we know that the British government, through the British Space Agency, in other words the United Kingdom Space Agency, has given grants to companies to develop a spaceport in Scotland. Now, unlike the spaceport which was proposed for Prestwick, which is a horizontal takeoff spaceport, in other words, an aircraft takes off from a runway, flies up high, fires a rocket which gets to the edge of space, and the two then glide back down to the spaceport and land like aircraft normally do. It's not that kind of spaceport. We are talking about a proper launch pad. We're talking about what they call vertical launch facility, where it's a rocket going straight up out of the atmosphere into space. And the proposal was, and this is interesting, you can look this up under the UK Space Agency's plans. The proposal was to award a contract to build the launch pad and the launching facilities at a site in Sutherland in the Highlands. Now, the site which has been selected for this spaceport has been selected so that it has a northerly facing launch window. In other words, it has clear ocean to the north with nothing in the way, no habitation, no towns, nothing for the rockets to fall on. And the idea being that they launch into what's known as a polar orbit. In other words, they launch rockets which go over the north and the south pole, so orbiting pretty much top to bottom, 90 degrees from the way you would normally expect things which orbit around the equator. Polar orbiting spacecraft are useful for things like watching the Earth. They're also useful for spying on each other, but they're particularly good for looking at the way the ice caps are melting. So there is a market, in fact there's a market of at least 300 launches that are queued up for these so-called polar launches. So there's a market for it, and it would be great to have that market launching rockets from Scotland. But the problem is that the UK Space Agency, instead of looking around at the various proposals for spaceports and trying to pick one which has been maybe put together by a consortium of Scottish or British businesses, instead of that they give £30 million grant to one of the biggest arms dealers, or sorry, not arms dealers, arms manufacturers in the entire world, Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin make everything from fighter jets to space stations. They also make guided bombs, they make laser guided weapons, they make missiles, they make all kinds of stuff. But a lot of it is defence related. And they are not short of $1 billion. So why is the UK government paying an American corporation which has never ever espoused any interest in launching rockets from Scotland before $30 million to say that they're going to build a spaceport in Sutherland on a site which has no roads into it, no power, no gas, no radar, nothing. It has absolutely nothing going for it. It's out of space of, well, moorland really, okay, untouched by human hand, with like 4 miles around. You might think, great, that's the perfect place to put a rocket launch pad. Normally, yeah, I would say yes, but you do need a road to get to it, and you also need power, and there's no power lines in it. So all that needs to be built. The artist's impression that Lockheed of it might have been the UK Space Agency produced was a very basic fly-around view of a computer simulation of what looked like a circle of concrete standing in the middle of a field with a rocket on top of it and a small concrete blockhouse about 100 metres away. And that was it. That was the whole. 30 million quid for that, for a big concrete pad in the middle with a small bunker. I mean, I'm sure you could build that for a couple $100 grand at the most if you really wanted to. So what's going on? Why is the British government giving money to a multinational corporation really doesn't need $30 million at the moment, or £30 million, sorry, at the moment, when it had never professed any interest in launching polar satellites from Scotland at all. But now suddenly interest. And then there's the case of, or the question of the other money, that £7 million of yours and my tax money, which has been given to another company called Orbex. And Orbex isn't even based in the UK. It has nothing in the UK. They claim to have a design office in Edinburgh, but nobody's been able to check that out. It could just be an empty office space for the government wants to give them. It's supposed to be 3D printing the rocket that's going to fly from the concrete pad in the middle of nowhere. Now, has anybody ever seen a 3D printed rocket? Not yet, I hear you say. Well, that's because 3D printing of things like rocket engines is in its fundamental early stages in the world at the moment. There is one company I know which is currently looking at making rocket engines by 3D printing. Not the whole rocket, just the combustion chamber. And it's incredibly expensive. And the British government is giving £7 million to Orbex to simply try and build a rocket with. And Orbex isn't a British company, it's not a Scottish company, it's from, I think if I remember correctly, it's from somewhere in Eastern Europe, but I could be wrong. There is another genuine rocket company based in Scotland, which is operating from Edinburgh, designing rockets here. Building some of the complicated parts and the tanks and things like that in Eastern Europe, but it's a Scottish company. And as far as I'm aware, they're not getting any £7 million worth of government grants. No, the £7 million of government grants only seem to go to people that, are connected in some way with the Tories or the arms industry. So I'm very sceptical about what will happen with this so-called Sutherland spaceport. I don't believe that it's going to be developed, and I certainly don't believe that Lockheed Martin are the right people for the job here. Again, it looks very much like we are opening the door to missiles, and launching facilities like this can be used for all kinds of purposes, launching rockets, as you've seen in North Korea, where they regularly launch missiles from all sorts of launch pads all across the country. Anyway, to cut a long story short, it is another one of these Chris Grayling moments where the British government has been recklessly spending their money, or rather our money, on things we're never going to see, like ferries that they didn't get from the company in England which didn't have any ferries and was using the same business model as a local takeout restaurant. And yet, Grayling was giving them millions of pounds in contracts to run ferries across the North Sea in the event of a no-deal Brexit. And we now know that that has cost £32 million in court action taken by other companies which operate across the through Channel Tunnel and the ferry companies. Grayling has cost millions and millions of taxpayers' money. He's not known as failing Grayling for nothing. Everywhere he goes, the stuff he does turns to crap in his hands. He is like the reverse of the Midas touch. He has the Medusa touch when it comes to things. So it's part of a policy of government spending to make it look as if the UK government is doing Scotland a favour by creating some kind of space programme for us. He said, we don't get a sliced pie. No Scottish companies or universities were asked to tender for it. No Scottish consortium was asked to make a bid to build the spaceport, to operate the spaceport, to run the radar tracking system, or any of it. Nothing. Not a single thing was offered to anybody here. It was all given away to the pals in Lockheed Martin. Anyway, to back to normal things and being of flying objects, we're now back to non-flying objects, Flamingo Land. And now Flamingo Land, as you may know, is the name of an amusement park in North Yorkshire, which has been very successful. And it's an amusement park and a holiday venue. Wonderful, North Yorkshire's got it, great. But now Flamingo Land has purchased a piece of land in Loch Lomond side with the express view of building another new holiday development there, which involves lots of houses, so shops, and half a dozen or more holiday chalets. These are just little lodges along the banks of the Leven River. Now you might think, okay, that's great, that's going to solve a lot of problems, that will provide a lot of employment for local people. But it's not, because what's already there in the same place at the moment is a failed attempt at building a shopping centre, a failed attempt at an IMAX theatre, which is now apparently an aquarium. And the piece of land in question used to be owned by a dye works, and then the dye works closed down. They gave the land in perpetuity to the people of Bala, right? And it belonged to their local council. Now, the local council decided, without consulting anybody in Bala, as far as I can see, to sell this lovely piece of land which nature had reclaimed, forest has grown on it, trees on it, beautiful bit of the southern part of the loch. They sold it for £1 to the Scottish Development Agency, which is a British quango, a quasi-non-governmental organisation. In other words, it's a British-run agency whose purpose is to attract inward investment from foreign companies into the UK. What the Scottish Development Agency did with it was they took that £1 investment and decided that it was worth £30 million to sell it to a developer. So they've sold this bit of land, which they didn't own in the first place, which belonged to people to an English company to come in and set up basically a down market theme park. Okay, it's not got all the rides and all the rest of it, but it's got a big shopping centre, it's got adventure horses, it's got, treetop walks, and it's got all the hustle and bustle that you would expect from a holiday park and a retail and a housing development. All the trees will go, except for about half a dozen, as far as I can see from their artist's impression. The whole forest will just be felled, and all the wildlife that was in it will probably either be killed or chased away in order for them to put up all of these houses. Will it provide the jobs that they say it will? Well, according to Ross Greer, the Green MSP, no, it won't, because the number of jobs originally slated by Flamigo Land to be brought to the neighbourhood was whatever it was, 100 and something, I think it was 160 jobs or something like that. That's now being scaled down quite a lot, and it keeps being scaled down. It's now at the point where Ross Greer claims that normal development of tourist activities on the loch would actually provide the same amount of employment bulldozing this part of the loch and building this development. In other words, the local people and the local efforts to engage and construct new tourism jobs and facilities around the loch don't need this development to provide those jobs. Not only is this an undesirable development in a part of the loch which needs really to be reclaimed by nature and needs to be left alone, and in fact for nature to be encouraged to stay there, not only is it not needed, but 55,000 people in Scotland don't want it. It is the biggest planning objection in the history of Scotland to any planning application anywhere in the country. 55,000 objections so far, and it's still rising. Now it's down to the local authority as to whether they grant planning consent to Flamigo Land for this development, but under the immense pressure they must now be feeling, I would hope that the answer is no. I have thought for many years that the best thing to develop on the loch around Bath would be a municipal sailing school, somewhere where people from any part of Scotland could come and learn how to sail for free. A facility where we could have boatyards building specially designed sailing yachts, specially designed for the loch, made out of local timber, using local talent, employing local people to build these boats, employing local people to teach other people how to sail them, generating a club atmosphere, create a club where we can sell maybe 50 or 60 of these boats to private syndicates of maybe a dozen people who share a bit of boat, and the other half, maybe another 50 boats, which are kept purely for training people, training the disabled, training youngsters, training the elderly to sail. Something different for that loch that doesn't destroy the environment. I mean, this is just my own suggestion about what we could do with it. There's the Maid of the Loch, right? The paddle steamer, which hasn't turned wheel for decades, needs a new boiler. They're crowdfunding its restoration. They've done brilliant things with it. They're waiting now to just get the last bit of funding in place to get the new boiler the Maid of the Loch, that beautiful paddle steamer, the only one of its kind, incidentally, a paddle steam left, which built somewhere else, dismantled, taken by train to the Loch, and then bolted back together. Only ship I know that's actually been built twice. That ship could be paddling up and down the Loch and bringing more visitors. There could be a bustling tourist centre at that pier, but that can't happen with the Flamigo development. Anyway, these are the two things that I care about at the moment this week. They're things that make me angry because the space proposal should be something that the Scottish Government is taking control of. We don't have, at the moment, things like spaceflight and general transport policy is under the remit of Westminster just now. But a spaceport, I mean, what is to stop the Scottish Government constructing a spaceport, even if we don't have powers over skies above Scotland? Even if we don't have those powers yet, why can't we just build one of our own and encourage our own universities, our own companies to bid, to design it and build it, and also to come in and start to design and build the rockets that we're going to fly these satellites. Scotland is the biggest and most successful and prodigious satellite manufacturing company in Europe. Scotland manufactures hundreds of satellites every single year, and yet we don't have a launching facility and we don't have our own rocket to launch satellites. Why not? We should. Anyway, I'm sorry that the programme earlier on was and didn't hear the sound properly, so I'm hoping that you've got the gist of today's programme from this new version of it. But my points today are that there are better ways of ensuring that Loch Lomond stays as a nature reserve, which is what it is. It's a national park. We should not be permitting huge private companies to move in and build on tracts of forestry and landscape near Loch to build a massive tourist facility. It's not in keeping with the Loch. It's not in keeping with the way we want it to be. And it certainly isn't what 55,000 Scots want to happen to their national park. So, we need a space programme, we need our own indigenous powers to do it, and our own Scottish Government with the vision to see what the space industry could become in Scotland, particularly when we have access to polar launching from the north of Scotland. We have a fantastic opportunity to launch from Scotland over the North Atlantic and over the poles. Taking advantage of it, not giving the money away to America or giving it away to some other country's company to run something we don't even know will work. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for today. Have a great day, everybody. But as usual, if you've got any comments about the content of today's show, let me know by making your comments on this thread, or if you want to send me a message by Facebook Messenger, you can do that too. Alright, I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye bye.